Hi, part three. My concluding remarks about my research report are that I learned a great deal. I don't know what was more impactful to me doing the research, which really was the data-driven sort of research through observations, qualitative, or the literary review. I read a great number of articles, too many. But I took them from several different classes that, the ESL classes. I used those literary reviews that I did for both those classes. I may have used the one from the data driven. I think we had to read articles in there. I used the stuff from the theory and curriculum class 651, and I think that reading the work that other educators are doing in terms of research and then applying it is probably the part of this that changed how I teach the most. And I don't know if I mentioned it on this video or the previous version that I tried to do, but my teaching, my pedagogy did a 180, to use an idiomatic expression. I've changed completely how I teach as a teacher, and I think I'm a much better teacher for it. So this was a really, really great project for me. I think I'm extremely more effective than I was. I think looking back on it, I was actually a bad teacher, I think. So I'm really, really happy with how the master's project has impacted me. The artifact summary. So going by PSLOs, the first one is on content and instruction, and I used my artifact number one was a PSYOP unit plan, and that was for EDFN 621, Culture, Language, and Literacy. I called my unit plan Making Connections Between Worlds and Cultural Heritage. The what is, it's a PSYOP unit plan. I'm going to try and make this briefer than I did the first time through. PSYOP stands for Sheltered Instruction Observation Protocol. Excuse me. Which is one of the widely used models for working with English language learners and English second language learners. The focus is on building background knowledge based on the student's own culture and then connecting words, content, key figures to their own life. The book used for this lesson is The Firecracker Boys, which I had in my classroom, and my juniors read it in the spring of 2017. Additionally, hands-on learning strategies like making posters, using graphic organizers, and individual maps can be marked on and colored in or used. The so what is this unit lesson plan helped me to put into place the ideas that we were studying about in EDFN 621, class on cultural learning and literacy. Instead of just doing a read aloud, class discussion, quizzes, exit tickets, journaling, and literary analysis, I was able to add more specific skill sets that allowed the students to connect with the text and tap into their own cultural habits of helping each other. So, for instance, in the first chapter, we read 3 to 5 pages a day. And at the end, kind of as an exit ticket, I'd have the kids write a quiz question. They had a choice to write an easy one, a medium hard one, or hard one. And at the beginning of the next day, we took their quiz questions, not all of them. I probably used about 3, and I tried to just get 3 that weren't overlapping. And they had to answer the quiz questions as a way of review. And I let them work in table groups, and they're allowed to use their books and their notes to come up with the answers. So letting the students work together replicates the Siberian-Yupik practice of helping each other. We discussed the metacognitive process of understanding. That's one of the results of doing this master's, is I talk about metacognitive processes with my students all the time. If they took notes, they did better. If they cooperated with other students, they'd do better. And if they followed along while I read aloud, they would do better. And I did allow students to read if they wanted to out loud to the class. We began a graphic organizer immediately afterwards with both a timeline and an organic mind map of the concepts. The focus for this entire unit was on accessibility of difficult language. Even though my students are fluent in English by high school, many are ESL and struggle with large words. Depends on the family. Some of the families speak all Siberian Yupik in the house. The SIOP model focuses on skill building, especially as it pertains to vocabulary that helps students struggling with academic subjects language to access. And this skill building from this model I used extensively. This was really impactful on my teaching. Now what? I definitely moved away from a straight lecture, take notes, quiz, and test format based on the information in the class. It seems obvious now how much more effective are the classroom strategies of group work, using graphic organizers, using mind maps, allowing the students to search out information online. I think the largest impact has been in the regular use of connecting to their own culture and experience. I use this all the time now. Sometimes I scaffold it slowly, but I believe in making connections to their own lives is the only way students can understand context. So that was PSLO 1. PSLO 2, which is research informing practice. I wrote a research plan claiming native language in the ELA classroom. This was from EDFN 621, Current Topics in Second Language Education. That was with Kathy Coulter. Loved her class. She's a really good teacher. That was a great class. I wish I could have taken more classes from her. Let's see. What is the research plan? Claiming native language in an ALA classroom. I proposed a research plan to add a native language component to a project in my classroom. While I did not complete the research project exactly as I wrote it, I did use this idea for several assignments in my classes. The theory was to build self-esteem by adding the students' native language to classroom assignments. The research paper, however, did teach me that ESL and EL students do not make significant gains in writing, grammar, or syntax in a second language if they're not already capable of those skills in their native language. So what? Through my research of second language acquisition, the parallel use of both languages in the classroom, and teaching specific skills associated with writing in an EL classroom, I was able to enhance my pedagogy in my classrooms. I made ready use of my classroom assistant, Sonia, who DiPaola in Siberian Yupik, who speaks both Siberian Yupik and English, and she writes them both, which is unusual. There's a lot of people fluent Siberian Yupik, but they don't write it. Can't spell out the words, which have strings of vowels in them. And it's used in some projects. I believe it helped the students feel more confident in their fluency. It legitimized, so here's the social justice, their native language as opposed to the constant reprimands about correcting their village dialect to standard English. That's me. I'm an English teacher, and I do correct. I explain it. I talk to them about why I'm correcting them. I apologize for being rude, but I tell them I'm there. My job is to teach them standard English, and they're basically trilingual. They speak Siberian Yupik, some of them. They speak village English, which is a different dialect, and they speak standard English. So we talk about them being much more fluent in many languages than their English teacher. I know that my aide and other community members frequently told me they appreciated my efforts in this area. Now what? In the future, whenever I have any students who are bilingual, ESL or EL, I will be adding a discussion of syntax and grammar in their native language in order to help scaffold into the syntax and grammar of English. I also believe the largest benefit of this research project was the connections with the community. I will be inviting elders and community members to come and help with projects involving Native culture. PSL 03, which is about social justice and instruction. I wrote a research paper for my EDFN 478, which is Issues in Alaska Native Education. That was on the exploration of college retention of Alaska Natives. I wrote this paper specifically for a girl that I'm mentoring, Jane, who did an exhaustive college search this year, and I helped her through the entire year, and I'm going to continue to mentor her as long as she wants me to. The what was a paper for my choice of issues faced by Alaska Natives in education. I am mentoring a senior, Jane, who graduated this spring. She decided to apply to colleges. outside of Alaska, in addition to UAF and UAA. By the way, she was one of the recipients of the full ride at UA, her choice, because she was in the top 10% of her class. I took the experiences that my daughters, who are ages 23, 21, and 21, had gone through in their college search and spent the year working with Jane through the process. I hired a college consultant. We lived in Pennsylvania, and both the girls were really strong academically. Lily was especially gifted, and so we were trying to get her into a good college. She's at Vassar now, so it worked. Anyway, I replicated that process with Jane. As I read through some of the material from my class and from the library, I realized the vast and horrible statistics regarding Alaska Natives graduating from college. I wrote this research paper over the information I found and then applied all the methods and ideas to my work with Jane. So what? Basically, Alaska Native students, like Native American students, drop out of school and college because of a number of reasons, including cultural alienation from other kids on campus, their families needing them to help at home. This is cited on at least one of the academic papers that I read. This was the number one reason. And a lack of preparedness for the rigors of college. I also found there are some very successful Alaska Natives, Native Americans, who have shared their experience about overcoming those challenges. This issue harkens back to the forced assimilation of Native Americans and Alaska Natives through forced attendance at boarding schools located far away from their families, through punishment for speaking their native languages at those schools, and a loss of pedagogy related to native ways of knowing. By teaching in a culturally responsive way and using culturally relevant and culturally sustaining curriculum, it addresses this idea of social justice. It overturns the injustice of forced pedagogy that only consisted of white mainstream curriculum. William Beanes, a Yupik man who went off to college in Washington State, described his process from cultural alienation to transculturation, wherein he was able to metaphorically keep one foot in both worlds. This idea of retaining Alaska Native culture while successfully attending any culture exemplifies the best possible income and embraces the idea of social justice at its core. One of those factors Williams described was having a close advisor mentor who continues to work with the student through college. There's also a cultural process moving from alienation to transculturation for those students that will have to undergo to be successful at college. Now what? My student Jane applied to 19 colleges and was given a full ride at 3 of them. She accepted an offer at Mount Holyoke College in Massachusetts. That's one of the original 7 sisters. We talk or text daily. I'm there to explain and help her through the entire process. I believe that one way to create social justice for Alaska Natives is to develop solid relationships with them. In that way, if they are presented with opportunities such as Jane has, then we as teachers can help reverse the damage of those who went before us teaching in Alaska during the forced boarding school years. I hope to be a part of Jane's life and her support system along with her family for years to come. PSLO 4 is leadership and facilitation, which is probably my weakest of the learning objectives, not the facilitation, but the leadership part. I think that I used the autobiography plan, but I'm going to skip that because I think I talked about that in the research project. I'm going to talk about PSLO 5, culturally responsive practice, and this is a curriculum unit I did for 651 at the beginning of my journey, called culturally responsive curriculum. What? The artifact is a curriculum meant to cover 1 semester of teaching composition to Alaska Native students at a rural high school using a culturally responsive, culturally sustaining method. So this is how I began and have continued on doing this. The students are taught grammar, punctuation, syntax, writing style through writing research papers on topics of their own choosing or their cultural heritage. Students' writing needs are addressed individually by the teacher through individual back and forth editing to allow for extremely widespread and academic ability and fluency. So what? We're almost out of time, so if I get cut off, I'll pick up on the next video. So what? This unit adheres to the constructivist model of learning and fulfills PSLO number 5. The constructivist approach is that the student learns best when building on information they already possess by writing papers about their own culture and skills, native ways of knowing. that they already possess that allows them to build the academic skills. Okay.